Good morning. The Principal Secretary for Gender and Affirmative Action, the Honorable Anne Wangombe, the Deputy Governor of Central Bank of Kenya, Dr. Susan Koech, the Head of Cooperation for Global Affairs Canada, Ms. Janine Cocker, Crown Trust board members, led by our able chairperson, Ms. Angela Waweru, Mr. Patrick Horden of the Parliamentary Centre in Canada, members of the Women's Steering Committee, colleagues from CRU and TISA, the team of the Women's Economic Empowerment Hub of the University of Nairobi. I think Professor Wanjiku Kabira is not here, but I see Dr. Mbivi is here. Distinguished guests, ladies, gentlemen, and fellow advocates for women's economic empowerment. I'm honored to welcome you to the 5th edition of the Women's Economic Forum, Kenya. Today, we gather under the theme, What Works for Women's Economic Empowerment? This journey and the conversation around women's economic empowerment began in 2021. And I want to appreciate and express my deepest gratitude to Janine and the Global Affairs Canada for their support in getting this conversation started, because we started it under the Women's Voice and Leadership Project, which is a very impactful project that seeks to enhance the voices of women and girls in Kenya. It's been a very transformative project, and with your support, we started this conversation, and we have kept it going, and we plan to keep it going. As we convene, it's imperative to acknowledge the pivotal role that women play in economic transformation, especially the women in what we call the forgotten middle, who remain under-invested in. These are women who are organized, but not yet economically empowered, highlighting the pressing need for targeted interventions. In Kenya, majority of the women operate within the micro, small, and medium enterprises, and approximately 43.1% of these MSMEs are female-owned, according to the recent survey by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. However, many of these businesses struggle to survive, with a substantial number closing shortly after opening due to challenges such as lack of access to affordable credit, finance, and because of limited skills. In fact, I want to remind us here that many people who are business people actually go to college to learn how to do business. Doing business is not easy. And so these skills, you need certain skills to do business. The current economic landscape in Kenya is challenging. Citizens are facing significant barriers in accessing credit or borrowing money at affordable rates, which affects everything from starting business to paying fees to buying property or even purchasing food. This reality exacerbates depression and hopelessness. So our discussion today must focus on what needs to be done to build a vibrant economy. That credit and affordability of credit can lead to devastating consequences if it is not addressed. And I'm pleased that the Central Bank of Kenya accepted our invitation to be part of this conversation and is represented here by the Deputy Governor, Dr. Susan Koech. The banking sector holds the power to make affordable credit available, especially to women, and unlock the immense potential that lies within this sector. Recent calls by the central bank for the lowering of interest rates are commendable, But we must also consider who needs this access to these facilities and what needs to be done. We know that the women we work with require additional support to engage meaningfully in the economy. A significant number of them who are struggling to cope with this economic downturn are considered fragile. And many women bear the brunt of economic hardship. So relying on these informal activities, which are highly vulnerable to economic shocks, makes them that much more vulnerable. And what we're saying is we need the government to step in and make meaningful and very directed and targeted interventions. Now, I'm not advocating for us to have a nanny state or for the government to be overly involved in citizens' lives, but we do need to foster partnerships that can help build the bridge towards unleashing the untapped potential within these groups. Today, you will hear about initiatives that have proven effective in empowering women, lifting them from hopelessness to meaningful economic engagement. Some have even become employers themselves. You will be presented with verifiable data from research and testimonies of those who have benefited from these initiatives. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the Women's Economic Empowerment Hub of the University of Nairobi and Professor Wanjiku Kabera, who has made that possible, because for the past 4.5 years, we've worked together to disseminate research, and we have collaborated with diverse groups of women through the Women's Steering Committee, and we've disseminated research findings to women in at least 12 counties and built their capacities to understand budgets and to advocate for gender-responsive budgetary allocations. We will hear about the inspiring work that is being done by other partners, like CREW, through their Jasiri program, which supports women who have suffered sexual and gender-based violence, individuals who are often overlooked by financial institutions because they're extremely vulnerable. But you will hear the testimonies of the interventions that they have done and how they've been able to move them to a place of stability and empowerment. We will hear from TISA and their efforts to address the unfair tax regimes that affect micro and small businesses, as well as from ASEPA and the insights into the emerging climate sector and the opportunities and the legislative actions that need for us to have gender-responsive policies that can help turn things around. So we will share what works for women's economic empowerment. I want to remind us that investing in women is not only a moral imperative, they make up over half of the population, but it is an economic necessity. So together we can absolutely create a more inclusive and equitable world. And so let this conversation show us how together we can contribute to making women thrive and contribute to Kenya's overall development. Women remain an engine, an untapped engine for economic recovery, and we must make sure that we make that push so that we begin this turnaround. Thank you for listening to me.